Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 211, recorded live Monday, August 18th, 2014. I am your host and recent inductee to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Todd Klindt. And of course, all this wouldn't be possible without, when I got my award, I'd like to thank all the little people and the folks at Rackspace. They gave me that flag. The folks at Rackspace Australia gave me that flag. They gave me that PowerPoint template. They bought this mic. Wouldn't be the superstar that I am today, standing up here on this stage, without the folks at Rackspace. So go on out to sharepoint.rackspace.com, see what they got going on out there. I assure you it is mind-blowing. You will love it. That's sharepoint.rackspace.com. First, we will start as we do every week with production notes, and we'll probably, I don't know if we have enough time for anything else, but we will start with production notes. First, I'd like to thank my friend Shane for taking over the reins last week while I was gone. We'll talk more about all that later, but I watched bits and pieces of it. Honestly, I can't stand to watch too much of Shane at once, and so I didn't watch the whole thing, but what I watched was less horrible than Shane normally does. So it appears as though he's actually getting better, and I'm just not sure what to think about all that. But thanks to him, it was better than dead air, and I do appreciate that because when I'm gone, I hate for you guys to have to sit alone home on Monday nights and watch Hit the Floor or whatever else is on, though I think that last week was the season finale of that, so you'll have to find out next week. But anyway, so thanks to Shane and thanks to Lori for getting him on the straight and narrow last week. That was good. So he touched on it a little bit last week, and we'll talk about it a little more this week, especially in light of what happened, 7 minutes ago. But the video and just happened right now. That is not a lie. So the video for this week will also be crap because my recording software just pooped out. So what just happened and what happened when I recorded the video for Netcast 209, and what happened right before I went on air tonight is the Logitech webcam software that I use to record this just crashes, just freezes. And it freezes in such a way that it doesn't, so it keeps recording in the background. It's generating this big file that is this video, I guess, but I can't close it. So the file's corrupt. And so the week that I did Netcast 209, I probably spent 10 or 12 hours trying to unravel that file and get it to be useful, and wasn't able to. And so that's why the video stunk so bad. So what I do, kind of do the belt and suspenders thing, I've had so many problems over the past few years, is I am recording the stream on Ustream also. And that's not bad, but it's not great. The video is much lower quality, and the audio-video sync-up is not very good. So I'm going to have to do something with this machine. It's done this like every time for the last 3. Jack in the chat room is saying it's time for a video camera. I've thought about that, Jack, and I think, Jack, you and I have even talked about that. A couple of issues that I haven't figured out how to overcome with that just yet are, number one, my monitors are like an arm's length away from me right now. So if I got a regular video camera, it wouldn't have the webcam fisheye thing, and I would have to find a way to get it far enough away that everything worked, and then have my notes and stuff in front of me and all that. And that's one of the things. The other thing is, if I do it with a regular camera, and this isn't insurmountable, but then we got to figure out how I stream and how I record, because obviously a real camera will record nicely, not stream worth a poop. So then do I do something like record it locally, split that out to HDMI, stream the HDMI? And then there's the question of I need to get a consumer grade video camera that has clean HDMI out, which apparently a bunch of the Vixias do, but they are $700,000, something like that, kind of outside my budget. So I have considered that. I would love to improve this situation. So if Jack or if anybody else has any suggestions on different equipment that I should use or anything like that, by all means, you can hit me up at Todd Klindt on Twitter, todd.klint@rackspace.com, whatever, and we'll figure that out. So So Jack is saying, what about using the webcam for Ustream and a camcorder for the recording? Thought about that as well. Then part of the problem becomes the microphone. I can only run it to one place easily. So then we have to figure out how to split that all out. And then the other thing is, if I use the video camera, again, we've got that problem where I probably can't be directly in front of a computer, and I stream with a webcam. And so the farther I get away from the webcam, that whole picture. So again, not insurmountable, and I don't mean to be a wet blanket, but those are just problems that I've thought up as I've thought this out, because I would love to move to something better than that. But Jack, I know you do a bunch of this stuff, and I've also got some other listeners who don't have the ability or just are too smart to join the chat room live. And if you've got any suggestions on video or audio improvements that I could make or anything like that, give me a shout out. Let me know. I would love to make this better for you folks. But yeah, so it looks like I'll be doing that again this week. I had to get some software to download this, and then it downloads an FLV file, and I have to convert it to something that Camtasia can use, and cry. It's pretty rough. The other thing is, I normally use the Logitech software to find out how long I've been going, and now I can't tell how long I've been on the air. So as I move topics, I'll just wait for Lori to put the time in, and I'll go by that. Anyway, so the next production note that I had was I got Netcast 210 out pretty late, an hour ago, maybe something like that. I was gone all week last week. Again, we'll talk about that later. And when I'm on the road, not only is it impossible to record this thing on the road, it's pretty impossible to edit it and download it and all that kind of stuff, especially where I was last week. And so that's why that didn't get out. And thank you, I think it was Joey Patterson, that pointed this out to me. I rendered the video out and forgot to change the title card. So it said Netcast XXX, title goes here, and date, blah, blah. So I had to, after I got it out like at 5 o'clock this afternoon, I had to go back and re-render it this evening with the actual title card in there. And of course, I blame Shane completely for that. 100% his fault. There's just no way that this is not Shane's fault. So luckily for him, I'm pretty understanding, pretty forgiving. I'm not going to hold it against him, but that was all his fault. Okay, let's move on to the topics. The other thing I have to remember is which camera to look into now, because that camera's not recording anymore. So the first thing was where I was at last week. So I wasn't going to say anything about this because it's kind of a weird thing and all that, but Shane did mention it last week, so now I feel the need to defend myself. Last week I was in California, Cambria, California, which is strategically located halfway between LA and San Francisco, which is great for somebody trying to fly into it. Lots of really unappealing options when it comes to flying Delta, but it is right outside of San Luis Obispo, this place. I went to a guitar camp, which is kind of weird for me. I've always been, forever since I was a young kid, always into music, liked to go to concerts and bought a lot of cassettes and CDs and all that kind of stuff, and just really into that stuff, watch documentaries about music and talk to my buddies about music and all those crazy things. And last year, if you guys remember, I was gone a week, and my wife and I went to the Dominican Republic. Get a quick little vacation down there, and we stayed at the Hard Rock Casino down there in Punta Cana. Can't say enough great things. If you ever want to take a quick little Caribbean vacation, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic is a great place to go, and the Hard Rock Resort is a great place to go if you're in Punta Cana. But anyway, after we'd been there a couple days, and it was hot and sunny, as you can imagine any Caribbean place being, we'd been out in the sun all day, and I needed to go inside and just kind of get out of the heat and all that. And when I noticed that when we checked in, one of the things that the Hard Rock Casino has is they had a couple dozen guitars you could just check out and play. It's the Hard Rock Resort, right? So they had a bunch of guitars. For those of you who care about guitars, most of them were Fender Stratocasters. And then you get like a little effects pedal thing and headphones, and you can take that back to your room. So I thought, what the hell? I'm going to stay in the room for a while anyway. I don't want to stay in the heat. So I checked this guitar out. and was horrible and had a great time and thought, this is kind of fun. Always kind of wanted to play guitar and, learn how to make some of this music I've been loving so much. So that kind of started the whole thing last year. Then last fall, with some help from a couple of buddies, one of them is a guy that a few of you may know, Dervish Shattervan. He used to work at Microsoft. He was a SharePoint InfoPath guy. He plays in some bands. He's been playing guitar for 30 years or more. Him and another buddy of mine helped me pick out a guitar, which led to them helping me pick out another guitar. It's a sickness, really. And so that was kind of fun. Well, then we'll call it December, out on the internet. Nothing good comes from browsing the internet, by the way. Not a thing. But I was following on Twitter, I think, Joe Satriani, who is a very popular rock guitar player. And they announced that he's doing a guitar camp, essentially, and it was called the G4 Experience. He had done, a long time ago, these G3 concerts. It was him and, Steve Vai and Eric Johnson or John Petrucci, 3 guitar players. So this was a G4 Experience is what they called it. So there's 4 of them. It was him, another guy named Paul Gilbert, which you guys, if you're not guitar nerds, might know him from Mr. Big. He was in Mr. Big when they did their big songs, To Be With You, Just Take My Heart, all that kind of stuff. But to us guitar nerds, he was also in a speed metal band called Racer X that was kind of cool. And then a guy named Andy Timmons. Andy Timmons, back in the late 80s, early 90s, was in a band called Danger Danger. And if you're the same age that I am, they had a video out, had a few of them out, but their big one was one called Naughty Naughty, which was kind of funny. Silhouette thing, but he was in that one. He's the blonde-haired guitar player on stage right there. And then the 4th guy is a guy named Mike Keneally. And Mike Keneally plays with Joe Satriani on concerts, and he's also one of the guitar players in Death Clock. So if you guys have ever watched the cartoon Metalocalypse, there's a fake cartoon heavy metal band, Death Clock. Well, they actually go out on tour, and Mike Keneally is one of the guys that does that. So talked to my wife, and she said, yes, I would love to have you out of the house for yet another week. By all means, go to guitar camp. So I went to guitar camp, and I signed up this January, I guess. And that was last week. So it was a good time. It was weird going to this because it was a small, so there was 185 or so people there, attendees, whatever the hell they called us there. And it was weird because I've been to those kind of things before, but never as a nobody. And never as a nobody who was probably the worst at the thing everybody was there to do. So this is a whole big, conference or camp or whatever of guitar players, 185 of them. I would guess I was the 5th or 6th worst guitar player there. I started taking lessons back in March, but I'm just no good whatsoever. But I did that for a week last week, and it was kind of nice to get outside my comfort zone, but it felt really weird to get outside my comfort zone. I actually got up on stage and played with Paul Gilbert very shortly. He had this thing where you could get up there. And that was weird because my guitar playing skills are horrendous, borderline illegal and torturous. But my stage stuff is fine. So, I had no problem getting up on stage and being in front of a couple hundred people and not getting nervous. I was just terrible at the thing I was supposed to be doing up there. So that was a weird dichotomy of comfortable and uncomfortable all at the same time. But one of the cool things that did come from it is there was those 4, and then there were 2 other guys, Bruce Boulay also from Racer X, and then Doug Doppler, who's another session guitar player. They were all there. And anyway, I signed up early and got a free guitar, and they all signed it, and I'll show that to you. Again, I assume that nobody cares about any of this, but this was the free guitar that they all signed. I've got some pictures out on the web of whose signature is what, because it's kind of tough to tell. But so that's kind of cool. Not going to get to play it because then all the signatures will wear off. But it was a good time, and it was. Jack in the chat room says it's worthless without Shane's signature. But it was pretty cool. And again, so most of those guys, certainly Joe Satriani and Paul Gilbert, I've known about and been listening to and following for, 25 years. And it was good to just kind of get to hang out with them. And it was, for most of them, you know, we had meals there and all that kind of stuff. And most of the guys would just come out and hang out during meals. So I remember, and this is so silly. I had a roommate, a guy named Steve, who was also a computer nerd, which worked out pretty well. But, you know, Steve and I and a couple of the guys would be sitting down eating lunch. And I remember one day, Bruce Boulet, the guy from Racer X, he comes up, he's like, "Hey, is this seat taken? Mind if I sit down?" Like, well, I suppose, you know, if you feel you need to, certainly by all means have a seat. And so then we just kind of shot the breeze, and he talked about, you know, making videos back in the day and touring, and just it was fun. And it was most of those guys were really down to earth guys, and I really got the feeling if I'd have said, "Hey, you know, I'm gonna be out," you know, I think he said he lives in North Hollywood. "I'm gonna be out in North Hollywood in a couple of weeks. You want me to give you a call? We'll go out and grab something to eat." I have every reason to believe he did get, "Oh yeah, here's my number." It was pretty cool. I did learn a bunch of stuff, most of which was how horrible I am, and it was a list of things that I had to, I need to, you know, study up on, that kind of stuff. But it was a good time, and again, it was very outside of what I normally do, so it was a good time. But to bring this all back home and bring a tech thing into it, one of the things that I did, again, I had to drive from the San Francisco airport down to Cambria, and I met another buddy at the airport, and he rode down with me. But to save data and all that kind of stuff, I used my fancy Windows phone, and I used the Here Maps application and downloaded the map of California ahead of time so it could all be offline, because we got through some kind of crazy woods in there, and the cell phone coverage was horrible. And so that worked pretty well. And that was one of the things. So while we were at this camp, it was out kind of in the middle of nowhere, and the cell phone service was horrible, and the internet was even worse, and I kind of felt, I couldn't, it was just very uncomfortable and weird for me, but it was a good time. If I do something like that again, I will have to make sure that I'm more skilled, I guess is what I would say. But it was a good time, and so some of the folks I know, like Lori, knew about this before I went out there, and even though I'm horrible, she was very supportive, and my wife and all my friends and all that. So it was, it was an interesting thing. But that's where I was last week, and I was at band camp. Shane did mention that there were a bunch of little kids there. It is a joke, but there really were probably 5 or 6 kids that were like, you know, in their teens. They were all better than me. But it did feel somewhat at home, because much like a tech conference, there was virtually no women there. So that was, there was probably 5, maybe 7 women there. So that felt homey, nothing but guys. But anyway, enough about that. Nobody on this, probably cares too much about that. But that was a fun time. And I appreciate you guys putting up with Shane in my absence. On to the next topic. Excuse me. And Shane talked about this a little bit last week, and I didn't listen to all of it because, man, Shane's voice grates on me. Holy cow. But those of us that have been blessed with Windows phones like myself, or double blessed with 2 Windows phones, there's been a lot of updates coming out recently, and so that story's gotten kind of fuzzy. So I'm going to try to clear some of this up, but we'll see how well I do. If you've not done anything with your phone, if you're just, you're not running the developer preview or anything like that, there's an update coming down called Sigh. And if you look into your, settings about phone, it will say running Nokia Cyan. I think right now we're all running black. But that's going to have a bunch of updates to Windows Phone. Most of it is things that those of us who have the developer preview have been using for a while. Things like the folders and all that kind of stuff. But if you've not done anything to your phone, chances are you're going to be, if you haven't gotten it already, you're probably going to get it. Now, that has been restricted by country and by phone type and all that, but most of the time it's, most of it you can, you're going to have it. It's gotten out. It's been pretty available. For those of us that are impatient and downloaded the developer preview and did all that kind of stuff, we won't get it. So this was unintentional, but and certainly I was one of those people that told you this, months ago, I said you can install the developer preview, you can install Windows Phone 8.1, and when everything is done, you'll get the full version. Mostly true. So here is what happened. By the time the developer preview came out and we were, installing Windows Phone 8.1 and all that, Windows Phone 8.1 was finished. It's not accurate to call it a beta. It's not accurate to call it a pre-released. Windows Phone, the operating system, all that kind of stuff, was done. And one of the things that Microsoft said back when Windows Phone 7 came out was they recognized this problem with Android where the carriers hold up the updates. And so Microsoft said, we're not going to do that. We're going to push them out. And the developer preview is their way of doing that. So again, not a beta, not a pre-release, nothing wrong with it. It's all good for the OS. But that is not everything. So the Cyan update is that. It is the OS. But it is also some carrier-specific things, crapware, bloatware, whatever, and some firmware bits, which are for phones, kind of like drivers, for the cameras and things like that. And so that's what we don't have right now. Now, the intention all along was that when the carriers released their stuff, those of us that were already running the OS would just get the firmware and the carrier bits on top of what we already have. That's always been the intention. But then Microsoft found a bug with BitLocker. And BitLocker is the software that you can use to encrypt your phone. And what they found early on, because they were doing this, was that a few folks running the developer preview, they got upgraded, and BitLocker failed and bricked their phone. And everybody was sad, and there was much laughing from the Android and iPhone crowd. So right now, those of us running the developer preview are not going to get the Cyan update automatically. Now, don't fret. Don't throw your phone on the ground in disgust or anything like that. There are two ways out of this. Number one is everything that I've read, and I've read like at WP Central and stuff like that, is that there will be a fix that will go out that will make it so when you upgrade, BitLocker doesn't kill it. But that will be out soon. And the soon that I heard was a couple of weeks, a month, something like that. So if you just sit tight, you're probably going to be okay. The other option that you have is that you can wipe your phone, roll back to Windows Phone 8, and then don't install the developer preview, and do the upgrade over the air to 8.1 to Cyan, and then enroll back into the developer preview. Now, this sounds like a very scary thing and a whole lot of work. It's not as bad as it sounds. One of the things that you can do with Windows Phone 8.1 is make a backup of your phone to your OneDrive. So you would do that, back all your stuff up to OneDrive. Then, depending on your phone and all that, like I've got a 920, I think I have to hook my phone up to my computer or whatever to get it to roll back to Windows Phone 8. Then don't restore my backup. Don't do anything. Don't install the developer preview, goodness sakes. Then, go out, check the settings, get the upgraded Cyan. And when all that gets in place, then go out and restore your backup that you made from the developer preview 8.1. And that should get you Cyan with all your settings. Now, there are a few little things and that you might lose. Things like game saves is the one that I've heard the most about. But you're not going to lose any files. You're not going to lose any of that kind of stuff. Jared in the chat room brings up an interesting thing. So what are we missing out on? For those of us that don't have the Cyan update, what are we missing? Now, Jared has a 1520, and one of the things that firmware piece of Cyan gives him is improved drivers for his camera. And he just went on a trip to Alaska, so that's pretty important to him. So he did the rollback. For those of us who don't need that, or I think there's some wireless updates, and for some of the phones, like maybe the 1020 and the 1520, there were some Miracast wireless video type things that are in the firmware that we don't have yet. So for now, I'm going to stay on the developer preview. I might take my 520 here, and I might wipe it and try that whole process and see how that all works. But don't fret if you've got 8.1 of the developer preview. We'll get the real one on there for you as soon as we can. I'm still loving my Windows Phone. This hasn't changed, but it just got a little tricky. Bugs. We deal in software, and that's how that goes. So once that gets all figured out, I'll let y'all know. Okay, now on to some actual SharePoint content. So I knew this was going to happen. I knew that, we found out last month that Microsoft was going to be releasing SharePoint patches once a month now instead of once every other month. And my gut told me, and I was correct, that they were going to try to release them on Patch Tuesday, second Tuesday of every month. So big exciting times. All your favorite Microsoft products get updated on Patch Tuesday. Good times for everybody. And of course, the second Tuesday of August was August 12th, and that's the day that I was out getting my nerd on out in Cambria. And and again, the internet connection was horrible. I think they brought the internet in on buckets. I can't be sure, but that's what it felt like. So I knew that was coming out on Tuesday, but I couldn't actually get to the internet to find out. But I got out there later in the day, and sure enough, the SharePoint 2013 and then the SharePoint 2010 August cumulative updates were released, and boy, were they a doozy. So we thought things got weird last month when they said we're going to do patches every month. They got even weirder this month with the even number of patches even. So we'll start with SharePoint 2013 first. Now, you might want to get a piece of paper and a pencil and all that, because there's a lot of changes. Or I have lovingly written down what all those changes were. You can go to www.toddklindt.com/sp2013builds, scroll down to the August 2014 patch, click the bugs, notes, and regressions, and all this is in there. I'm actually just stealing my own notes right now. I'm stealing my own content. I don't even feel bad about it. But here is what has happened. So normally, we get one big executable for SharePoint Server, and it has all of the components that are being fixed. They did not do that this time. Instead, they just released the individual component patches, so they're going to be WSP files or whatever, and you got to download 5 of them for SharePoint Server. Now, I'm going to go ahead and assume that most of us are doing SharePoint Server. So there is a patch for SharePoint Foundation that is not included, that's also new, not included in any of the patches. So you have to install the Foundation patch and then 5 SharePoint Server patches. And then if you've got Project Server, you've got 7 patches to install. They're all separate. So that kind of stinks. Now, knowing how the patching works, or gosh, the way it used to work, you don't need each of the components, but you are a fool if you don't install them all. I just can't imagine any better way to make SharePoint mad than by just trying one of those patches, because I'm sure that there's some crazy dependency. So you have to install all 5 of those patches, got to run the configuration wizard, all that kind of stuff. So, you're probably thinking to yourself, that's crazy, Todd. There is just no way this patching story could have gotten any worse. It is just not possible. Oh, but it is. It is possible. So they threw another little monkey wrench in the works. While they call these cumulative updates, they don't actually accumulate all of the updates because not all of the components are in there. So you need to have Service Pack 1 or something like that installed. But then you also need the July 2014 cumulative update installed, because there are things patched inside of the July 2014 cumulative update that just aren't in one of those 5 patches that you've got for August. So if you want to have everything, you need to install Service Pack 1, the July 2014 cumulative update, and then 6 if you're on SharePoint Server, 7 if you're on Project Server, August 2014 updates, and then run the configuration wizard, and then all that craziness. Whew, I'm exhausted, and I haven't actually even done this, on this. So be careful with that. This is a great time to test all this on a test box somewhere. Be very careful with all that. Joanne Klein posted in the chat room, I've come to the conclusion that I'm too stupid to apply SharePoint patches. That is not true, Joanne. I've met you. You're not stupid at all. But I will say that it's like in video games. There's a difficulty level that's it's gone up. We've moved to the next level now. I don't know if this was on purpose. I don't know if September's is going to be better. I don't know what the story is on that. But for now, those are out there. Now, SharePoint 2010 has a very similar story, but it's not quite as complicated. You know, the project patches and all that kind of stuff aren't as bad. But it was a similar deal. They're not cumulative, so you need to install July before August, things like that. It's kind of goofy. So I guess the thing is, normally you guys probably all just go out to my builds pages and just download and click next, finish. Now would be a good time to maybe read the instructions, because again, this is not for the faint of heart. This isn't a SharePoint for Dummies thing. You need to have the Patch Ninja achievement unlocked if you're going to install these August 2014 patches without just completely bungling your farm and being the laughing stock of all of your SharePoint friends. So I know Jared in the chat room, he didn't even know there were instructions to read, but definitely do that. So as I find out more about this, and as I install these on a few other places, I'll keep you up to date. I do have blog posts coming, but last week was crazy and all that. Jack Frew in the chat room suggests that I might want to include a link to a suicide hotline in the notes for that. So that's not a horrible idea, Jack. It's gotten pretty crazy, but there you have it. For all you folks out there who are big conspiracy theory folks, you can put this as another way they're trying to get you to go to Office 365 by making the patching almost undoable by mortal hands. So again, I'll be boring the pants off of you guys in the next couple weeks as we talk about this more. So you got that to look forward to. Another fun thing that happened on Patch Tuesday was Windows got patched. And you know, the Windows team, they got tired of the SharePoint team taking all the credit for having bad patches and all that kind of stuff. So they released a couple of bad patches of their own that did little things like make your machine blue screen all the time. That is one of the benefits of the August patches for Windows 8.1. And for those of you that patch right away, you may or may not have had this problem. It's very specific to specific circumstances. I waited because, number one, I was at a place where there was just no chance of me downloading these patches. And then by the time I got home Friday and saw the stuff Saturday, I wasn't going to install them. But, excuse me, there are some problems with that. And but Microsoft has yanked those patches, so you're probably safe. And you can probably install them. If you did get those patches, there is a community fix out there for these blue screens. And I didn't have it in front of me, but I should probably look at that. Apparently, there's a specific file that gets corrupt, and that is what causes the blue screen. So if you can boot your box to USB or pull the drive out or do whatever, and if you can find, the font cache file, lovely. So if you go to C Windows System 32 and look for FNT, cache.dat, the font cache file. Apparently, if you delete that file, your blue screen problems will go away. So keep an eye out on that. As far as I know, that only impacts Windows 8.1. No. It looks like Windows 7 also. Actually, that's the thing I'm looking at now. But be very careful with that. If you got blue screens, check a look at that. So Jeff in the chat room, SP Jeff, you can find him on Twitter at SP Jeff, mentioned that the patch quality has fallen apart this year at Microsoft. And I would agree that certainly this month, for sure, there seems to be, I don't want to say quality issues, but quality assurance, QA issues with Windows patches. And I think there have been a couple of dark spots in the last year or so. Again, I don't have any official, cause for this, but I think, Microsoft is trying to move into this agile patching thing. They bought Yammer, and that was part of the thing with Yammer, was Yammer patched all the time. and things like that. And I think we're seeing the growing pains of that. I think we're just seeing, these rapid release cycles and rapid patching cycles and those kind of things. And I think that's what we're experiencing right now. So I get the idea they'll get it figured out. Microsoft has got a lot of really smart people in it, and Jared, he's there too. So I think they'll get it figured out. But it's going to be rough for the next few months, and I think we'll know when the coast is clear. I'm going to keep the same philosophies. Don't patch unless you need it, that kind of stuff. But they'll come around. They'll get it figured out. I have faith in them. Speaking of Windows, it kind of came out all over last week that Windows Threshold, which will be the next version of Windows, both client and server, Windows 9, whatever, they're going to probably give us a tech preview next month. Yes, September 2014, late-ish. And I'm looking forward to that. As I mentioned earlier, and I think this was in the chat room before I went live, I was not a fan of Windows 8. I did not install Windows 8 right out of the bat. I waited till Windows 8.1. Threshold, I'm kind of curious about. And I've seen some of the stuff that's going to be in Threshold. One of the things is they're going to bring back the start menu-ish. That's been a topic of a lot of discussion. A lot of folks thought that was going to show up in this patch this month, and that wasn't the case. But there's going to be a lot of cool things in there, so I will probably put that on a tablet or something somewhere and just see what that's like. But if you want to play on the bleeding edge, apparently they're going to have a sign up for it at some place, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Start picking which one of your machines gets to be the sacrificial lamb and taste the threshold first. But hopefully in a month or so we'll have some more information about that. And finally, I wanted to talk a little bit. Now, Shane last week, you're probably thinking to yourself, that Shane, he can just come in and just talk about great stuff, and boy, he makes it look so easy. What Shane didn't tell you, well, I guess he told you a little bit about this one, is I had all the notes for last week's Netcast done up in OneNote. That's where I do all my show notes, and he just went through and did my stuff. So he sucks, is what I'm trying to get to. But one of the things that he talked about was the OBD Auto Doctor app. So this was something that I saw on WP Central a couple of weeks ago, and it was a cheap car diagnostic app for Windows Phone. And if you kind of roll the whole thing back, mid-90s-ish, 96, 97, something like that, all the car manufacturers got together and standardized on a diagnostics port, and it's called OBD2, OBD standing for Onboard Diagnostics. So any newer car, they're going to have this jack underneath the dash, usually, where like service places and all that kind of stuff hook up their things, and that's how they read the codes and things like that. But that has become very cheap recently, very, very cheap. And this app was one of many apps that you could use now with cheap off-the-shelf ODB readers. And that's what I did. So when I saw this app, I went out and grabbed that app. And then I went out to Amazon and grabbed like a $15 Bluetooth OBD2 reader for my cars. And so it's just a little thing. I should have brought it in. I forgot about it. But this plugs in. You can leave it plugged into your car all the time if you want to. And it hooks onto that ODB2 jack, and then it has Bluetooth. And it just shows up as a Bluetooth serial device. So my phone can see it. My tablets can see it. And you can install an app for any platform. So I've got one on my phone. I've got one on my Dell Venue 8 Pro. Love this little guy. Love it to pieces. So I've got one on here too. And then whether the car started or not, you can connect to this thing over Bluetooth, and then any ODB2 app will read it as a serial stream. And it lets you do a bunch of great things. So the reason that I grabbed it is because about the time that I saw that article, the check engine light in my wife's car had popped on. And we were curious what that was. And I think actually there was another light that was like, the gas cap's loose or whatever. And I'm like, I'd love to be able to get in and just see when that's going on. And, we tightened it and it hadn't gone away. So this ODB2 thing, one of the things you can do is you can clear these alerts. But it lets you do all kinds of stuff, like it'll report the speed your car's going, and all the gauge information comes over that port also, so you can see it in an app. And then you can look at the alerts, you can make some changes. And again, it was great because the whole thing cost me less than $20. So the adapter was like $15. The software for my phone was $2, and I bought an app for my tablet too. It was like another $2 or $3. But it was it's just great fun, and it works on every car. You can just unplug it, plug it into however many cars you want to. A good time and really cheap. And as a gadget guy, it was kind of a cool thing. So I thought I'd mention that. Shane was talking about, the Chinese hacking his car and all that kind of stuff. I don't know where he gets all that kind of stuff, but there we go. So that was the last thing for the topics for last week. He didn't do a bad job on the rest of them, I guess. And all right, so now we'll go on to shameless self-promotion, kind of running down towards the end of the year, getting a short list of shameless self-promotion. The first thing is here in a month from today, I will be in Boston at SP TechCon. That is September 16th through the 19th. Shane and I will be doing a half-day session on Upgrade. We'll be doing a session on PowerShell, where I'm going to be adding some Office 365 PowerShell, some doing PowerShell with REST, that kind of stuff. And then we're also going to be doing a session on just admin tricks, just all the crud that we've done before. And so that will be there. I'm sure we're going to try to do the Netcast from there, and just, we'll have a booth and I'll hang out and all that kind of stuff. Good time. So if you're going to be at SP TechCon, for goodness sakes, let me know so we can find you. And if you see me at SP TechCon, for goodness sakes, come up and introduce yourself. Say hey, we can chat. Love to chat with people. So by all means, don't be shy. Come on up there and do that. And then a couple weeks after that, I'm going to be in Stockholm at the SharePoint Exchange Forum. That is September 29th and 30th. I will be doing an upgrade session there. And then also doing my load testing with Visual Studio session. That one will be up there too. Going to be good times. And it's funny, if you've ever been to a SEF, the SharePoint Exchange Forum, there's a bunch of SharePoint Exchange link guys that are also in a rock band. So Nicholas Goody, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, is one of the people. Christian Stahl, I think, is in it. And so after I posted some pictures of me at this guitar camp, Nicholas got a hold of me. He's like, hey, we're going to be playing at the thing. You should come get up on stage and play with us. So, and that's kind of why I wasn't going to talk about this guitar thing, because it suggests a level of expertise that I just don't have. And so now apparently I'm getting booked for gigs and all kinds of stuff. But I'm going to do it. I got up on stage. It's I did it once. I told him it'd have to be a simple song. I'm a big fan of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Stars, another one of my big hits. I play a mean Michael Row the Boat Ashore. So I've got a wide and deep catalog of songs that I can play. Waltzing Matilda, I can play that one. So a lot of options for him there. We're still kind of haggling on that, but that should be a good time. Humiliations galore, as you will hear in my favorite movie. So anyway, that's September 29th and 30th. So, excuse me. So anyway, thanks again, folks. The folks in the chat room are eternally patient with my machine locking up seconds before I went live, and then seconds after I went live. And also appreciate you folks putting up a Shane last week. Sounds like you guys helped him through, and it went pretty well. I will be here next week. Oh, next week's Labor Day, maybe. No, week after that's Labor Day. Yep. So I'll be here next week for sure. Labor Day, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what Labor Day's got going for it. That's 2 weeks from today. I don't know if we're going out of town or something like that. But again, appreciate this. I will try to get this one out sooner rather than later. And until then, I will see you guys next week. Thanks, and have a good night.